Ed George, and I was brought to San Quentin prison to take over the maximum security units in death row. Period. The reason the warden selected me is I had worked there in the past for him, and he wanted me back to bring innovative programs to the inmates there who were locked up like 23 hours out of 24 hours a day. So there was a lot of violence going on, gangs were killing each other, and even officers were getting killed. So I was brought in to sort of try to change the whole atmosphere of the maximum security section there in San Quentin. So when I was there, I started a program where yogas were coming in and teaching the inmates how to breathe and how to do exercises and things like that, and brought some other programs, artists in there and some psychologists from UC Berkeley, and the programs were working really good. And then one of the yogas said, we would like our master yoga to come, if you would let him come into the prison. And I thought that was a great idea, and I had a doctor, psychiatrist friend that was very instrumental in getting him. And so we invited him to come. But in order to do that, I had to overcome the deputy warden who didn't want him there, and another warden. And so when they were on vacation and not at the prison, I got approval for Ram Dass to come in. And so we're there at the prison, and Ram Dass is coming in the front gate, the back gate, and all the gates, about 5 gates to get where we were going. And so I'm starting where he comes to the prison and I'm escorting him with 3 other yogas and our doctor, Sutton, and that's when this thing starts that I'm going to read.
Okay.
Can I go?
Sounds great. Go ahead.
Okay. The evening of the visit, Ram Dass arrived with full beard, cheerfully serene smiles, and wearing light, gauzy yoga attire. His charm and gentle nature calmed my deep apprehension. Dr. Sutton and I ushered him by security, whisked him through the yard and up to death row. I felt like a thief in the night, sneaking him through by watchful eyes of guards from other units who had no idea what was going on. The row was reached by a small elevator that could only be loaded from a secure chamber at the base of the north block, about 50 steps from the gas chamber. Those going to the row had to phone first and identify themselves. The row was on the 6th floor of the north block, completely sealed off from other floors. When the elevator reached the 6th floor, we exited into a small, sealed anteroom. We were observed through a tiny window by a death row foyer officer before allowed to enter. When the heavy steel door was unlocked and we entered, I watched Ram Dass as he took a deep breath. Then he smiled and stepped into the most secure structure in the prison system. Through a grilled gate to the left of the entrance was a long, vacant tier except for a single table. The booming voice of Sergeant Riley greeted us. The stage had been set by the death row staff. They had set the table halfway down the tier. Somewhere, the officers had procured about 20 door mirrors and set them up, angling them in front of each cell so that the inmates could see Ram Dass directly, so that those who could not see Ram Dass directly could observe him in the mirrors. Along with Dr. Sutton, I and the 3 regular yoga instructors entered the row with Ram Dass. The inmates were unusually quiet. The somber, often grim mood of the place dissolved into anticipation. Faces partially hidden by bars peered at the visitors, waiting patiently. An officer in the screened-off area stood motionless, his .38 revolver holstered at his side. Sergeant Riley planted himself outside the grill gate at the end of the tier near the entrance, his legs spread and his arms crossed over his chest, observing everything. It was a rather surrealistic situation for death row, and I doubted that anything like this would ever happen again. Ram Dass went to the center of the tier and sat on the edge of the lone table. He pushed himself back to the center of the table top and brought his legs up into a lotus position. He bowed his head and waited several long seconds while a hush spread over the tier. The other yogas, Dr. Sutton and I, lined along the inside of the tier inside the security gate with Ram Dass. We sank slowly to the floor and watched. The 40 condemned men were ready, seemingly more serious than I had ever seen them. Ram Dass's larger-than-life presence filled the air as he greeted the inmates as brothers of the eternal being. He spoke to them as if a father to a son, a sage who wanted to share his experiences and wisdom of life with them. His theme was one of reaching and lifting up their spirits to seek a union with their Creator. He spoke solemnly in simple words which the condemned men seemed to understand. He taught them how to breathe, telling them to relax and breathe out all of the evil in them and breathe in goodness. He talked about jails and cages and prison cells and how their spirits should not be bound by the bars. He talked about people who were not in jail, but whose lives were lived in cages of fear, which they created for themselves. He told them to let their spirits go out and into the stars and fly wherever they desired, because the spirit was free, even though the body was entombed. As the session progressed, I looked around the tier. I noticed that most of the officers were engrossed in the moment. We had shut our eyes and participated, as did the inmates, all one being for a few moments. It was beautiful.
Okay.
I tried to imagine the associate warden and his assistant, how he would feel if he could see us. I turned to Dr. Sutton and smiled, believing she must have had the same thoughts. What was beautiful to us was outrageous to others. Together,
Okay.
together we had taken a calculated risk, broke with tradition, and dared to do something tangible that most of the prison staff didn't understand. We had experienced something very special. After the session, Ram Dass walked the tier and spoke to each member, each inmate, before he left. I thanked him, surprisingly inviting him back. The deed was done without incident, but there would be usual criticisms to follow.